Hey, hi everybody. We're here today to talk about shipping secure software within the developer flow. And I'm really excited to have some of our customers and partners from Holcim, Celsius, and Solidify, who are experts in this area, to talk to all of us about their thoughts and experiences in building more secure applications. I'll be your host today. My name is Niroshan Rajadurai, and I lead the business side of our security technology here at GitHub. I've been at GitHub for 3.5 years now, and I joined as part of the acquisition of SEML, which was the company that developed our awesome semantic code analysis engine, CodeQL. So I'm excited to be helping our customers put the sec in their devsecops programs. A few housekeeping topics for us to go through. If you have any questions, please put them into the chat. We've got both John and Matthew diligently keeping an eye on your questions, and we'll try and answer them directly in the chat. And for some of the more broader ones, we'll try and answer them at the end of this session today. We'll try and bring them in. We'll be running a few polls as well. We'd really like to learn more about all of you. So, please share your thoughts through the polls. And if you're interested in a demonstration or have any other questions, please reach out to your local GitHub sales representative or email us at infocus@github.com. So as part of our theme today, we're going to be talking about how to run a successful DevSecOps program. And there'll be three main areas that we'll be touching on. One is the kind of well-understood challenge of unifying development and security goals within an organization and helping you all work towards fixing issues, improving remediation rates, so bringing security to where the developers are sitting today and improving that whole experience. And then basically, metrics, like how do you drive, get metrics that can help you drive successful DevSecOps programs. So with that, I'd like to start by introducing our guest today. To begin with, we have Daniel Fernandez from Holcim, where Daniel is the IT security officer. Welcome, Daniel. It's a pleasure to have you on our panel today. Would you like to introduce yourself and your company, please?
Thank you very much, Niroshan. So my company is Holcim. I work in a cement building company, to be in a nutshell, but we provide a lot of solutions and we are a lot of companies. But in a nutshell, we produce the same materials that you're living probably on, which is ready mix, which makes the foundation of most of our structures in today's modern world. And specifically, my job is in the Holcim EMEA Digital Center, which is basically a digital center to give service to the business. And we give service to the EMEA full region with around 30,000 users. And we are a more or less big company here in Spain, giving IT services to more than 150 internal employees and a lot of people around the EMEA region also. So if you're interested in checking in our company, visit our website.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Daniel. And next up, we have Sanjin Medic from Solidify, where he's the head of development. As one of our transformation partners here at GitHub, it's great to have you on our panel today, Sanjin. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Sanji Medic, and I'm a head of development at Solidify. I do still do some consulting regarding to security compliance and transformations. Solidify is a consulting company, and in short, we are in the making software development easy, which means we help our customers achieve better throughput, quality, and so on by helping them with their own software development. So looking at how we work, we have worked with 250 large organizations, and by working with them, we have seen a lot of patterns, and we've got experience how to actually do stuff in a good way and get effect. We are 45 in this area working, and we are doing deliveries all over the world. So thank you.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to introduce Shiran Kleiderman from Celsius, where he is the Chief Security Officer. Shiran, thank you for joining us today. Could you briefly tell us about yourself and what Celsius does, please?
Thank you for having me. Shiran, based in Tel Aviv, Israel, Chief Security Officer, as stated. Celsius is a crypto platform, a financial platform for lending and earn, very similar to banking operations in the regular world, just with crypto, with various types of coins. You can see the various services and features that we provide here through a mobile app, web app, APIs, and such. It's a global operation, 850 people plus, and it's all about security and trust. We have the various pillars of secure development, secure DevOps, secure IT and such, growth and scale. So thank you for having me, and we'll talk more in a bit.
Thank you. So very exciting to have these three different kinds of companies on the call today and hear all of your perspectives. Now, as part of the discussion, we'd love to learn all about those of you who are watching this session at home or in the office. So we'd like to run a brief poll. So in this poll, we'd like to understand in which industry do you all work in? Is it financial? Is it healthcare? Is it retail, government regulated, technology, manufacturing, or another area? And if I have a look here, we see the polls coming in. We'll just give it another 5 or 10 seconds. Excellent. So I see a lot of you are from technology. We have a few of you from financial. Excellent. There we go. It's coming up. Awesome. Good. So that's very useful. Thank you all for sharing that. And then for our next poll, we'd like to understand from you which job function describes you best. If you could put that in there as well, please. It'll be very helpful for us as we think about how we answer this. Are you working in software development, application or product security, or in another area of your business? Hey, we have a lot of developers on the session today. This is really exciting. Very important to some of the topics we'll be talking about. Excellent. Good. We'll give it another 5 seconds and then, okay. So let's move along then. So the next thing then is, let me just share my screen. So thank you all for sharing those perspectives of where you're from and what you're doing. So that's very useful for as we talk through this. So the next thing that I want to start doing now is start actually getting into the questions. So let's start with our first question for the panel. For the three of you that are on the call, what was the reason for your company's DevSecOps journey? Perhaps Daniel, you could kick us off here.
So really, this started very, very slowly. At some day, years ago, somebody looked at the requirement to modernize ourselves and our applications. As we are an industrial company, we need to give service to the business. And we started the digital transformation process by embracing the agile and DevSecOps methods and agility. Thing is that we saw mainly that we needed to cut big applications into small microservices to enhance the service, the availability, and basically give a better customer care to our business. Because after all, that's the main purpose of all application, to give the business the support they require. So basically, this really enhanced our agility and increased the service we were able to give to them. And really, at the beginning, we started with only one guy, with one credit card, with an idea years ago. And right now, we are like a rocket flying through the moon with a lot ongoing.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, that's a very interesting story, for a customer that's kind of gone through the traditional kind of maybe bricks and mortar to more software, to more agile software journey. It's I'm sure a lot of the people on the call can relate. Maybe Sanjin, would you like to go next then from a Solidify perspective, your journey?
Sure. So we've been in DevOps sphere for quite a long time. We have seen huge benefits of doing that early on. And with this DevSecOps now coming on, or starting to get some foothold on companies, what we're seeing is actually natural next step in maturity of software development practices. Based on the threat landscape we have today and needed for better quality and faster deliveries and so on, we see that this is actually something that a lot of companies should look into it, because it does actually give big effects and enable companies to actually deliver faster. So this it's a bit about what we are seeing at Solidify.
Oh, that's very good. And then Shiran, finally, from yourself, from Celsius's perspective.
Yeah, so we're a financial institution at the end of the day. We deal with user data, user funds, and in parallel, we're in the growing crypto sector. So everything is about user adoption, trust, protecting data and funds. And with the growth of crypto and specifically the growth of Celsius, you need to scale all the operations. You need to have all the security pillars in place, secure development lifecycle, secure DevOps, and all the topics that we're going to talk about. So security is key because trust and user funds and data need to be protected. And this is the only way to go to support the business, to deliver and ship, as stated here, secure products and services.
Excellent. So that's very interesting. So, really interesting set of backgrounds that you've all come from. We hear rapidly growing startups to microservices to transformation of, legacy business to new business. It's really exciting and, thinking about the developer as well. So let's go to our next question then. And I'll just bring this up so we can see it. So the next one is, as we think about this whole experience, part of the journey starts to introduce changes to how developers are working today. So how do you get developers engaged with DevSecOps transformation? Perhaps Sanjin, maybe you can lead us here, and then we can work around.
Yeah, thank you. So what I've seen is actually using metrics have helped me a lot onboarding companies and teams to DevSecOps. For many developers, it's important for them to deliver good and quality software, and they really take pride of that. And simply just putting code in focus higher in enterprises will spark in many, and will be able to. That will be one way to actually get developers engaged. Another thing that I've seen is kind of try to visualize the state of your journey, and try to gamify this in a way that makes it interesting. So talk a lot about velocity instead of current state. Try to acknowledge good work and try to actually help the teams that need the help. In this journey, you will have some great teams, and then you have teams that will need some help. And identifying which teams need what, it's really good way to actually use what is needed for different teams. Like good teams, they just probably won't need anything else. Just you get out the way. But maybe weaker teams will probably need some help, and that will help out with this journey.
That's excellent. Like gamification, I think is a very interesting call out. Trying to lift the whole organization by bringing competition and sharing good ideas. That's a very interesting perspective there, Sanjin. Shiran, how about yourself?
Yeah, so with us from the beginning and during the operations and everything is connected to leading by example, meaning showing findings, working with the developers. So showing findings through penetration testing, code scanning with GitHub solutions and features. So first of all, showing concrete, exploitable, you could say, or findings by severity. So once you take your practice out of the Excel and you show it live, and you show specific vulnerabilities in the code or in the mobile app or in the APIs and such, people relate to that, and that's very concrete. So leading by example, showing findings, and in parallel, working with the developers and with the DevOps personnel and such in their environment, meaning not changing their workflows. Yeah, you understand their habitat, you understand how they're used to working. So not forcing tools that change their flow and their daily routine. That's key to understand their habitat, understand their environment, and then integrate the solutions in their ecosystem. Again, in the AWS CI/CD pipeline and their Jira, their remediation queues and stuff like that. So not forcing things, not taking things out of their routine. Again, people like routine. People have their habits, and that's the way to engage them and create the remediation and the healthy process that you want.
That's excellent. I mean, we very often hear of like the siloed perspective of security and development teams. So it's so fascinating to hear as a security organization, the work that you're putting towards coming to where the developer is and collaborating and where they are. I think that's very, very thought leading and very encouraging to see. So thank you for sharing that. Daniel, how about yourself from Holcim's perspective?
So, well, I mean, I'm fully in line with what my companions are saying. And after all, empathy with the developer is one of the first steps to getting them to know what they are doing wrong or what do they need to change. In my case, I have a background in computer science, and I love to develop in my old past when I was studying. And right now I understand the mind of a developer, but also I understand also their lacks. And I fully agree with going the journey with them and explaining everything to them, because the change has to go slowly and with them, not overwhelm them with a lot of controls and requirements and left them the documentation to read on, okay, here's your book of requirements, you can start now on complying. No, that's not the best approach. You need to motivate them with boards, with gamification, as Sanjin told us. Even myself, after we have this discussion these days, I'm studying now gamification, how to enhance this even better. But one of the topics I also do with GitHub Security Advanced, for example, is automating and preventing things from the start. I'm at some point not allowing specific type of errors to go into a repository or whatever. There is a minimum partial control that you need to set up where, okay, this is where this is the line and you cannot cross. And I mean, in the year 2022, that somebody still is developing SQL injection, it really hurts myself, at least when I think about it. But that's one of the things to motivate the developers. So please, this is one thing that is so old that we just should not have this. And this is due to the chaos that developers have so many different backgrounds and teams that, as Sanjin has told us, one of them are very experts and know everything about the technology, the software, all the stack from the CPUs they're using, the memory, how the threads are interacting with the applications. Another may come from a financial environment. They are starting to develop and they do not know the real architecture issues they may be building. So awareness is one of the key topics here, and also prevention.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like as I listen to the three of you, I kind of hear like three key themes, like developer first. You've got to get the information in the workflows where the developers are working today. It's got to be native. It's got to be simple for them. Get them the information they need at the time that they need it without sending them all over the place. And it's got to be automated, right? Because at the end of the day, we want our developers to ship stuff, but we want to make sure they ship it securely. So that's really amazing insights there. So thank you for that. Let's jump to the next question. So the next one was, should we have a poll before we go to the next question? So we're really keen to understand from the audience now, how do you all feel about your DevSecOps transformation? How confident do you feel about it? Are you very confident, not confident, or do you feel mediocre about it? Okay. Wow. Some really interesting data here. Wow, this is really fascinating. Can we get it up on the screen, John? and then we can talk about what here. So this is really, really fascinating, and I wasn't expecting to see this in this session today. So over 75% of the people in this session today feel like their current programs are kind of, mediocre to not confident. I don't know if anyone on the panel has any thoughts about this,
I would say a lot of companies sit with a lot of legacy, and kind of that could be a result of this poll. I mean, you have old code maybe delivered for 15 years ago or 10 years ago and so on, and it's really hard to be too confident about that code, especially when you don't have processes in place.
Yeah,
I would add, go
ahead.
No, I would add that a lot of things are on the pressure that developers have sometimes with just make something that works. And when it works, it's already done. And there is a lot of pressure on them on the timeline. Usually there is not much time for developers to have the adequate thoughtfulness on the code. That is one of the pain points that I see in lots of places.
Yeah, I'd add that when you define dedicated resources and teams, and the teams don't need to be big, and the resources, could be singular amount of people, even one or two, and you have resources from the governance perspective, but more importantly, from the implementation perspective, and specifically, we have an application security team, which we call the blue team. That gives confidence, and that gives the developers they see in reality that there's a dedicated team or personnel that can help them and advise them and also implement a lot of this. So defining the resources, allocating the resources in reality. And again, the numbers don't need to be big. Yeah, we understand that everyone has resource constraints, and at times it's hard to hire talent, but having a good structure of governance and then implementation, product security, and like I said, leading by example while coding, that can give confidence, and also the developers understand that the organization is investing in this transformation, in this topic.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, as we carry on with the presentation, I'd actually love to see in the public chat, maybe reasons why or thoughts why people feel like, their confidence level is mediocre or not confident. So we'd love to see that in the chat, and maybe we can pick out some things to talk about at the end as well. So thank you there. Okay, so now we're ready for our next question. So let's bring this up here so you can all see it. So thinking more broadly about DevSecOps transformations, could you all share with us what are some of the challenges with application security when a company introduces a DevSecOps workflow, and what are the approaches you would recommend for overcoming them? Perhaps here, Shiran, you could lead us off.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the goal is to ship software and products and services as fast as possible, and specifically in a sector like ours, the crypto sector, in which there are a lot of companies fighting, you could say, for clients and wanting to run forward. So first of all, you need to integrate security in a way that there are no delays or blockers, as you say, in the development terms and such. So that's the first challenge. And how you do that is really, like you said, staying native, staying within the development flow and being an integral part that doesn't introduce bottlenecks or delays. That's one part. And with automation, and with the partnerships and us accompanying the developers, at the end of the day, we don't introduce any blockers or delays and such. So that's one thing. The second thing, as stated, and this is probably one of the most important things even in life, is to be focused, meaning with various solutions, cybersecurity solutions, again, from dynamic and static and SIM-related products and API security and endpoint security. At the end of the day, these products and services introduce a lot of alerts, and if you dump, with a garbage truck, all these alerts, nothing will come out of it. So focus is key, and refining the findings, the alerts, and only focusing on the critical, high, medium, and defining logical SLAs. That's the way to go. And this also shows that with the developers that you're prioritizing, and you're not just dumping every alert possible, every finding possible. So it's pinpointing the ones that are relevant and also adding the relevant context, because at times security solutions can pinpoint something as critical or high, but in reality, there's no way to exploit it for various reasons, because you're in a Faraday cage, or you're not in a physical data center, or you're using a different cloud, or the setting, the user setting and how you work is just different. So context for the findings, for the alerts, and a handful of findings, not a ton. That's key, and that helps focus.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I love it. Focus. I'm going to take focus out of this, and actionable out of the focus is amazing. So the next one, maybe Daniel, would you be able to maybe talk from your perspective here?
Well, lots of interesting points by Shiran. On my side, there's one of the topics I have is the contract with the third parties. Usually, in different companies, it depends. But if you have inside developers, you can handle them fully on your own. But if you have third-party developers, which is a common use, I have, for example, an issue here in Spain. We cannot train developers on our own in Spain due to the law, because they are could consider it as employees, and you can enter into some liabilities. So after all, you have to set requirements, give them some requirement sessions, but not a training sessions, and specifically focus on the contracts that you may want to implement with them, so at least they are aware that they are entitled to fix critical vulnerabilities that are focused, of course, not just random vulnerabilities, everything on the context, but they need to be aware that they need to fix the code they are developing, because after all, they are the ones building the house, and if the house lacks doors, I want a house with doors, please, with closed doors, if possible. So that's one of the pain points that we have. Acting with third parties that they somehow at the past could have a strange contract that is not fully customized, and you need to liaise with the legal team to fix them and make them aware of, okay, these are your requirements as a company that works with me, because that's one of the pain points.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And Sanjin, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, great points from my colleagues here, Daniel and Shiran. What I've seen is on a team level, just starting up, it could be hard to actually find correct tools, set up processes in correct manner, but you can always take help with that. Another part, when you have processes in place and you start scanning the code, what I usually have seen is the exact thing what Shiran also told. You get the situation when you get this huge log of warnings and errors and everything. And one of the problems and challenges is actually for new team that's starting up with devsecops is to actually understand on one level, what level to put the warnings and errors, how to actually approach them. I've seen just teams kind of shut down the warnings and then go ahead with them with their day, or just kind of start working and come in a situation when they are overburdened with the task ahead. So those are the two tasks on the team level. And if we look up on an organization level, and especially in bigger organization, then you have this part of transformation. You don't want to be in a situation when you have 10% of your teams in DevSecOps and maybe 90 or 60% of the teams doing legacy stuff, legacy processes. So in those teams, I see transformation another problem area that needs some focus. And in those organizations, the IT security department needs to step in and be more crisp. They need to be more kind of direct, not be so abstract, come down a bit and just talk about a bit hands-on what needs to be done and on what level. So those are some points what I've seen, and everything this can be adjusted and breached over, and I think the results speak for themselves. You get the quality code, you get the velocity, and you get security as well.
Excellent. So that's very interesting. So I mean, obviously, as you talk about the challenges of those bigger organizations where you have some on and some not, and trying to make it easy for them, kind of weighs back to the points that Daniel and Shiran were making about focus and just that area. So I think that's really interesting to bring that all together there. Thank you. So let's jump to our next question, which I think is also very interesting, which is, it's great that we talk about these wonderful concepts and things that we want to do, but, what are the metrics you should be using to measure your DevSecOps deployment? Maybe Daniel, you can kick us off here from your perspective, and, what metrics have worked for Holcim?
Well, basically, as we're using now a GitHub code scanner and also secret scanner, one of the key metrics I'm looking is that nobody else tries to put up any secret on GitHub, please. It's one of my key metrics. But on top of that, there is quality metrics that we also check sometimes, depends on different teams and the maturity of the team. But basically, how much time do you spend coding in a secure way versus not coding in a secure way is something that at some point we try to match, and with different teams you can do it. But basically, as a core concept is, okay, what is the high level of vulnerabilities that really are creating an exposure that could later in a penetration test be the exploit? That's one of the key metrics I follow to go on with the team and explain to them, okay, you see, by doing this before, we would have prevented the penetration test of checking this and all the time spent by you fixing afterwards. So penetration testing results versus the initial key metrics that we can measure with code scanner is one of the key points I have.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That's actually something that we very often have a conversation with customers about, this concept of pen testing versus code scanning, and the concept of shifting left and getting that information earlier. So it's really exciting that you've got that measurement in place because it really is tangible. I think the data point is like it costs like 100 times more to fix an issue at the stage when you're doing pen testing than when it's at the developer's desk at the time that they write it. So, there's probably a huge ROI that you're seeing from that activity. So that's excellent. Yeah. Sanjin, how about yourself from Solidify's perspective with your customers?
Yeah, I think this is important to metrics, to actually look at the metrics, because one experience that we have is you have good engineering teams. They are usually good at security as well. So they know the tools, they know the practices, they know everything, and they understand it, and they just need to get things done. And by measuring kind of code quality, like security code scans and secret scanning, you can see security parts of that, but also you can leverage that for using to see best practices in the code and other parts of software development as well. So by just kind of comparing things like how are you working with branches, how are you looking with commits, how are you working with commits, how big code changes are you doing, do you have a duality principle with pull requests, do you have code owners, how many of your builds are automatically deployed, how many builds are actually passing through. A lot of those statistics, when you start overlapping it, you will get some better picture of how actually team performs in sort of holistically. So in a lot of the cases, we do kind of tooling. We create a special reports based on kind of what other tools the company is using. So there is a lot from GitHub. There's a lot from Git, but maybe you want to look at tickets as well. And or some other tools, depending on where you're deploying, if you're deploying to Azure or some other cloud vendor.
Excellent. Makes a lot of sense. And then Shiran, from your perspective at Celsius?
Yeah, so even before the metrics, the asset management piece needs to be organized, meaning the repositories that you manage, what's private, what's public, the teams, how you manage the users and onboard them to the repository. So first of all, when the asset management piece is organized, and that's one of the first things that every organization needs to get right, managing repositories, what's live, what's not, what you can archive, and then managing the users. Then you could really manage the various findings, again, from the tools that were mentioned here, secret scanning and dependency bots and other code scanning results and findings. One of the key metrics that's interesting for us is time to remediation, meaning once you have a finding and it's a high finding or medium or critical or whatever the severity, how long until that's remediated? Yeah. How long till it's not in the queue anymore? Yeah. So that's something that's interesting and important, and you want to verify that time to remediation, the SLA, the numbers and the flow and the response, yeah, are relevant. So that's one of the key metrics that are interesting for us per SLA, per severity of findings that we defined, that findings don't sit in the queue, yeah. And just to conclude on that, how do we make that happen quicker? That's the native, again, scenario or attribute that we're talking about here, is pushing the findings to the developers' environments, the Jira queue, for example, or if there's a finding blocking it before it's pushed to the repository or to the testing, staging, production, and such. So using the automation there and staying in the environment, focus, opening the relevant tickets in Jira, automated and not. These are some key metrics: time to remediation, SLAs.
Excellent. So that's really interesting that you spoke about the mean time to remediate, because this is actually something that we often talk to customers about too. And if you've ever read the Veracode State of Software Security report, it's a great report. Lots of like useful statistics to benchmark yourself against. And the ones that I really like in there is they talk about remediation rates. And so they say like a typical security vulnerability today, when it's identified, only 15% of those vulnerabilities are remediated after 7 days. They then go on to say that, typically after 90 days, so after 3 months, only about 45% of these vulnerabilities get remediated. And then you have like the whole long tail problem that it doesn't really get much better than that. And fundamentally, you're starting to accrue security debt. So it's, as you think about where you are in an organization, like I think those are like interesting starting points. So, and then it's thinking about where it makes sense to go in. And, we've done some research about, getting information in the pull request and how does that work? And that comes back to your point, Shiran, about focus, right? In the pull request, getting specific information to the developer about the problems they're introducing, and, making it actionable as well. Like, I think those are some areas there where reducing the noise and and bringing the focus can help like drive this remediation rates and get better metrics out of it. So yeah, the MTTR like always like resonates with me. So thanks for calling that out. Okay, so let's have a question from the audience now, or a poll for the audience. So the next one that we'd like to talk about, and actually maybe I shouldn't have given away the answer to this, but I'm curious to understand from all of you that are out there today, how long does it take for you to fix a vulnerability after you've found it? Would be great to see what you're all seeing out there in your projects today. Maybe I'll ask the panel, do you all have a prediction of what it might be? Do you think it's going to be less than a week, 1 to 3 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, or 6+ weeks? But don't look at the poll tab before you answer.
More than 1 month.
More than 1 month. Daniel, what do you think?
Let's say 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, I always say the same, 1 to 3 weeks, maybe.
1 to 3 weeks? Okay, all right. Excellent. Well, I think we're still going. Okay, you might have influenced some answers here. Let's see. I think we're pretty close. John, if you could bring it up on the screen, maybe we can talk about this. There you go. So a strong waiting for 1 to 3 weeks. So Daniel and Sanjin did well, but I mean, not far away there, Shiran, right? I mean, at like 3 to 6 weeks, 1 month. So I mean, the vast majority of issues are out there quite a way away from the time that the developer does their work. It's interesting. Okay, so if I can grab the screen back, let's go to our next question. So this is a little bit of a positive question. Like we've spoken about journeys and challenges and collaboration. But I think the exciting part is like as a company embarks on this kind of DevSecOps transformation, there are going to be some good successes that come out of it. And I'd love to hear from the three of you about what the successes have been for your organizations or the customers that you've been working with. And maybe Sanjay, you can lead us off there and we can go through that.
Yeah. So what I've seen is like in this DevOps journey, a shift left journey, we have focused on building, on deploying, maybe running some unit tests. But with DevSecOps, we're starting with scanning code, analyzing code, and trying to actually figure out what we deliver. Is it good enough? Can we make it better? So this mindset and this change of mindset is really interesting to see, because with DevSecOps you get not only quality but also other benefits where people are start using tools for other scannings as well, and so it's kind of a chain reaction of events. And the end result, I think it's much better to just kind of input what you're putting in. So it's a 1 + 1 = 3 situation where you actually got a lot of great benefits. And one thing that I've seen everywhere is actually time to market gets shorter. In large organization, you get more sense of security, and this will enable you to actually deploy faster and shorter down the cycles. Smaller teams, they can deliver every second week. So in big organization, they need some kind of reassurance to do that. And in many cases, DevSecOps gives them that reassurance. So I've seen the bigger the company, the greater effects, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Shiran, how about yourself? What are the successes been at Celsius?
Yeah, so when the release process is collaborative and you go through a good QA process and even involve marketing and security, and everything is managed and very clean, you could say, people are satisfied because they see that the business is moving forward. There's very good collaboration. When you release versions and stuff, there are no bugs or exploits or findings when you do penetration tests within the process, and then even after it's deployed to production. So people like to be part of an organized, you could say, flow that doesn't take them out of their native environment, doesn't bug them too much. Yeah. And then when they see that the code is clean, no security vulnerabilities, no QA problems, again, the whole release process is good. People are satisfied at the end of the day. That's important. And on top of that, and I see this all the time, and I assume everyone sees it here, when people learn about cybersecurity and new types of technologies, at the end of the day, they're expanding their toolbox. So today, maybe they're developing Node.js or something, and maybe they're inspiring to be cybersecurity engineers or lead security in the organization. So giving them more and more tools and expanding their tech stack and security knowledge, that's important. People like it. People understand that it can improve their career. That's important.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Daniel, how about yourself?
So, well, one of the successes is the sadness of my penetration testers in the red team. They are sad, as now they are telling, no, but now I'm not going to find anything here. Literally what they are telling me now, I'm going to have to work on another topics instead of these things. You're making my life harder, which is one of the key successes of DevSecOps. I mean, the idea is that the red team has to focus their resources and time on other more specifically things. As we have said, the time to market, really, from the past where you were doing only penetration tests at the end of the development phase, and then you have to fix everything, and everybody is stressed about the go live because we have a go live and we want to go to the internet, but suddenly there is a vulnerability there, which is very basic, that would have been 5 minutes. That's really not happening now. At least most of them are getting fixed in the development phase at the shift left process. So yes, that is one of the key successes that I can see. And the other one is the developers are getting engaged. There is a like gravity mass of awareness of security that, like we are saying, and they on their own are asking for training. They are engaged and they are getting to know now what a vulnerability is, what they are building, and it's really key that their blindfold is off. They now see what they are building, and it's really one of the successes, awareness.
That's amazing. So this probably leads me to a couple of interesting questions, which actually came from the panel or from the audience as well. One is like, recruitment is a big challenge in this space. The question here is like, Ian has said, I've interviewed hundreds of developers for a number of roles. Most don't even know what OWASP is. That's endemic in the industry. How has that experience been for the three of you in bringing in new developers and educating them, and like, what's the right profile of a candidate that can be taken through this journey? Shiran, maybe you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, so people that have drive and passion to tech and to development, with good security training, from videos to PowerPoint presentations to, like I said, these workshops or showing concrete findings. It's relatively easy, yeah, with the right people, yeah, and also at scale, to just train and empower them, yeah, and teach them more and more security. So we do a lot of training, secure development lifecycle presentations and videos about OWASP, and we produce one-pagers about the top 10 vulnerabilities and exploits like every year and such, and also show example findings, like I said. So with a lot of training, yeah, people that have drive and passion and are good technically, they'll adopt security, yeah, because they understand that it's just inherent in various technologies today. Yeah, it's an integral part of leading technologies in AWS and Kubernetes and Docker and stuff like that. So they need to speak the language anyway. Yeah. So with training, with examples, could be done for sure at scale, and of course, one-on-one and in a personal way.
Excellent. So when you talk about training, I mean, is this content that you're building yourself? Are you using a tool? If I was in an organization and I have this challenge, like, how do I need to go buy something today, or there's some things I can do today to get started on that journey for training?
So a mix. We use an external vendor for training videos and various quizzes. Mm-hmm. And in parallel, we write one-pagers, we create quizzes, even on Slack, for example. We'll post a poll like you posted here throughout the day. Here are a few questions, and choose the correct answer, A, B, C, D. At times we do these things, so people are engaged. And even at the level, if it's on Slack or through email, we have our news bot, security news bot. So when the relevant news pieces, again, it's essentially an RSS feed, but a curated RSS feed. It'll post news content in the various channels, and some people, of course, are interested in it, some are less. So it's a mix of using vendors for videos, for things that are more professional visually, design-wise, and tracking. Yeah, you want to track who completed the quizzes, who completed the videos, and such.
Yeah.
And then stuff that we do, one-pagers, quizzes, the news bots, and stuff like that. Phishing training, of course, phishing simulation, we do a lot. So it's a mix of external vendors and also things that we just create ourselves.
Excellent. No, thank you for that. Sanjin, how about yourself? Like, you obviously, as in a consultancy role, you're working with lots of different companies. So you must have to go through this journey as you're kind of trying to elevate them in their security posture.
Yeah, exactly. And this makes me a bit sad because I'm involved with OWASP. But I've seen tendencies in this. So what we're seeing right now is there is a great need for developers, and we are starting to get developers that does not have kind of background in engineering. They, as Daniel mentioned, they maybe have background in finance or some other area. They kind of start programming themselves. So in this case, like Shiran mentioned, the development or education is really important step. But in most of the cases I've seen, it's not really enough. Because like you have this vast majority of developers with different possibilities and different backgrounds, they won't be able to understand some of the deeper concept of kind of threats and exploits. So in that case, I try to use tooling as much as possible, and try to have dedicated kind of teams that can reach out and help out. So we need to educate as much people as possible, but there will be always a gap, and we need to bridge that with tooling and maybe expert teams that can come in and help out when needed. So like organization with 1,000 developers plus, you will have some really good people, and then you will have some people that basically can write syntax. So this is the difference.
Excellent, thank you. And Daniel, how about yourself?
So thinking on, I mean, if I'm in an interview and I have a developer not knowing a WASP, the key thing that we have spoken is what is the attitude. In my case, I mean, the attitude is the first step. If he's willing to learn and he has the capability, that's the key point to see when you are getting developers into the organizations. And as training is part of what we are speaking of, one of the critical points we have to have a development career in the training session. So you have, okay, this is the mandatory training you are going to have on these development codes on this year. Let's say each month you have this type of training with the capabilities you have. I mean, if you have a finance user that doesn't know and cannot get into the depth, maybe you need to get an expert in security developer for that team. That's one of the approaches also. Having a security champion on either of the development team, so at least you have more developers that are focused on the operations, not so much of security, and then the internal expert that is really helping them or doing the secure code after they developed. You are kind of delegating into one team member the effort, but at least you have the security champion that is also raising awareness on them. Divide and conquer.
Excellent, I love it. Great, that's awesome. Before I go to more questions, maybe we can do just a round of like closing thoughts from the three of you. Like, what would be 3 things that you would want people who are listening to this presentation today to take away from this session? Maybe Sanjin, if you kick us off, yeah?
Yeah, thank you. So what I've seen gives a lot of effect is these things with actually look at the statistics, look at metrics, try to utilize them, try to gauge developers by using gamification as a powerful tool. Another thing that I would like to see is actually caring about the code and on higher up in organizations, because this is the actually recipe and for the end result what you're having, like features and so. So yeah, use the metrics to identify teams that are good, and then you can actually let them create processes also. So this is a couple of key takes, and yeah.
Excellent. Daniel, how about yourself?
So basically, it's much better to prevent than fix later. It's one of the key topics. So even if it's sometimes troublesome for the developers and takes a little bit more of time to orderly check the code, that's for sure a return of investment in time for the company. At the end, it's going to be for sure the best option to fix first and not fix later. And by that, use devsecops tools or automation where you can.
Excellent, love it. And Shiran, from Celsius perspective, what are the 3 things that you'd like people to take away from today's session?
Yeah, so leading by example and showing that you understand the findings, you understand what's relevant, and not giving WordPress findings when they're talking about Amazon EC2 instances, for example. So leading by example, that's one. The second, we said focus, let's choose the relevant 5, the relevant 10, findings that are relevant and alerts throughout the secure development lifecycle, and not dumping an Excel of findings that won't be remediated in a normal time period. And the third thing, like we said, keeping it native in their environment, not changing workflow, not changing habits, leaving it in Jira, the whole automation, remediation, orchestration, in their environment and not out of band, not in a different environment or in a new flow that just people aren't used to. Again, developers, we know they like their specific keyboard and their specific browser plugins. Mechanical keyboard probably. So leaving, the lion or the tiger in their habitat in their specific environment. That's the key thing.
Yeah, excellent. So we were actually scurrying away in the background trying to capture your thoughts. And so maybe if I just put it up on the slide for everyone as well. I mean, maybe just to summarize the summary that the three of you have given, kind of 4 key things there, like embrace the developer environment. You've got to be where they are to get engagement, to get the remediations that you want. Lead by example. Don't dump. Demonstrate, work through. It's a partnership. It's not a silo. Prevent rather than fixing. Always cheaper. We discussed about how it's 100 times cheaper. And use metrics. Metrics are going to tell you how well this program is going. And we spoke a lot about mean time to remediate, which is a really exciting one there to take a look at. Okay. So let's take a look at some additional questions that we have here. So there was a question that came earlier on in the presentation, and it was about like, how soon is too soon, or how soon is too late to start DevSecOps? Like, if you're a tiny startup, should you be embracing this on day one, or is this something that you should kind of leave until, like a year or a year and a half or 2 years into your journey? Shiran, maybe you want to have some thoughts here, having maybe just been through this journey?
Yeah, so like Daniel said, and this is related to prevention and more importantly, building the foundations correctly. So even if you're a small startup and you're building it alone or using maybe third-party contractors and such, it's important to build the foundational security pieces from the start. Otherwise, you're going to fix a lot later, or you won't be able to scale. And we understand and we know that a lot of the core technologies today, they have security built in already. So you just need to read the appendix or, read some of the documentation. And a lot is within the deployment, relatively off the shelf, right away. So better to, even if it's one person, when you start writing code, do the input validation, do the SQL injection, prevention and such, and also the infrastructure level. So you'll save time. You won't need to bother with it and fix later. And at times it just won't be scalable.
Excellent. Daniel, how about yourself? What do you feel here?
So, fully language done. Depends on the criticality, of course. If you are not going to develop some crazy things that is going to be really exposed to a hacker or whatever, depends also. But for sure, starting with even a mock-up of DevSecOps that you agree to take the it's like the attitude. I'm not going to have time, I know, to check the code, but at least I'm doing it. I'm having it here, and we get the practice, and the brain is already used to have the controls in place, even if they are not, let's say, mandatory for the moment. But we know that at some point we are ready to just take the button, but we have the maturity and we know what is happening. We are not going to start from scratch, because then you are going to have a lot of effort and you're not going to know what is happening. It's much better to, at least, even if you cannot control it, have the intention and do the people, okay, I have the code, I cannot check it, I go with it because I have to go fast and my business is going to die in 2 days if I do not develop this. So I need to ignore security. That could happen in some startup. Not the best option. I would hope that doesn't happen, but okay, I accept the risk, but at least I am accepting the risk. I know there is a risk. I know there is a SQL injection in production, which is horrible, but let's hope that for the 2 weeks that I'm going to put this, I can fix it. It's business acceptance.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And Sanjin, how about yourself?
I totally agree with Shiran and Daniel. Just the kind of financial aspect of starting with DevSecOps early, it's really not that expensive. It's just for many new projects, it's just a matter of turning it on and handling the warnings and errors that you get. And also, like if you have specifically like startups which usually cut corners in different way because of financial issues, having that in place will increase security a lot. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody should put it as a best practice in everything they do, because it's nowadays it's really easy and simple to start with it.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Well, thank you for the three of you for taking the time to present and have a conversation. I think it's been a great conversation. I've definitely learned a lot of things about this, so I really appreciate the open conversations that we had. For all of you that are out there, we'd love to know what you thought about this session as well. So you can scan that QR code. We'd love to hear your feedback on how this session went and areas where we think we can improve, or things that you really enjoyed that's really useful for us here as part of the InFocus team to understand that. So thank you all for taking the time to attend the session. And again, to my three guests here, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, and so just as an FYI for all of you that are on this session and want to know what's coming up next, we've got the How to Help Developers Prioritize Security in Software Development, and that session is running from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. CET, and it's with Elio and Nick, who are wonderful presenters. I've sat on a lot of presentations with them, so if you have the chance, definitely try and catch that. But otherwise, thank you all. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us for this session. Bye-bye.